Hello, Dr. Ron England here, and just an introduction to the course COP4834 Web Systems 2. If you're in this class, it's all about the project. So I'm going to kind of give you an idea of how the whole thing works, and just a few pieces of information. One of which is, yes, you can work in teams. You can work solo or teams in this class. Teams work very well. Solos work very well. I will, if you don't have an idea for a project, I will work with you to try to help you come up with an idea for a project. I typically do have some ideas. But here's what the class is built around. It's totally built around a client-server project. And the way that I've structured the course is that each of the assignments is a step in part of doing this project. So assignment 1, getting started. If you're using Visual Studio, install Visual Studio. That doesn't mean you have to install Visual Studio, because you may not be using Visual Studio. You may be picking a totally different environment. Also, it doesn't mean that it's assignment 1. I put the assignments in a logical order. However, you may skip directly to work a little bit on assignment 3, and then come back to a little bit of assignment 1, then go over to assignment 2, and then back to 4. What it means is that each assignment is a step in developing a project, many of which work concurrently. They actually work at the same time. So I'm going to slide this over a little bit so you can kind of see it a little bit better here. And so you're going to come up with a method for documenting the project. You're going to come up with an environment that you're going to build the project in. You're going to use managed code. That is a given. So when it comes to managed code, it pretty much is going to be Git. There are other code management environments, and if you make a case for another one, that'll work. But Git and GitHub are really the ones that you want to do. You're going to publish, your assignment is going to be published to the web. You've got to decide what hosting environment you're going to use and set that up. How you document, how you design, how you plan. Then the assignment itself, I do not need to see every single screen of every single design screen that you're going to do as part of your project. I need to see an example of a page that creates data and stores it, that allows you to bring data back, one that allows you to update the data, and one that allows you to delete the data. That's it. I need to see an example of each of those, because the reality is that if you can do each of those, every other page is simply a duplication of that capability. Now, this makes it easy on the build side for you, and that you just need to show me that you've got that. But it has to be a full-blown project in that you may only have a few screens with the plans to build more, but how are you going to manage security? The decisions have to be made. What coding conventions are you going to use? The decisions have to be made and documented. The timeline and the planning can go beyond the end of class. What you have planned for in May, when this class is over, is what I expect to see. So make sure your project and your timeline make sense. How are you going to evaluate your user interfaces and use feedback and document for both the project documentation and the user documentation? So all the elements that you would see in essentially a small project are part of this project. So I hope that this helps you. I'm actually at the site for COP4834. I have all the requirements externally. I also have a massive amount of case studies of projects that I have done with my coding and the code. I will give you all the code of every project that I've done, including the SQL code. They're all there. But the decision, if you decide you're going to do Visual Studio, which is most of the examples that I have in Visual Studio, because most of the projects I do are in Visual Studio in C# and using the ASP framework because that is the demands of the clients that I take on. However, this is your project. If you have a client and you want to start a new project, you're demonstrating to me your ability to build client server. Once you can do client server in one stack, you can do client server in pretty much any stacks. It's just learning different frameworks and different languages, which is not that hard to do if you understand the basics behind it and also how to write, how to do the project correctly, how to document it, because that's where most programmers fall short. That's it. It's time to get started. This is usually a relatively small class, so I'll be able to give you a little bit of attention. Thanks very much.